you. Thank you for the time allotted to hear from the public regarding this critical matter under human research. I feel it's important to put an emphasis on the fact that the common rule cannot supersede the Constitution and not allow due process, which includes notice of government action, and citizens have a reasonable opportunity to make a case. That fact must be considered when proposed exclusions for the intelligence, surveillance activities, and criminal justice activities are considered. The NPRM states that the rationale for excluding defense and national security related activities is that their mandated missions are field studies, not research, and are not designated to develop or contribute to generalizable knowledge. And the other point, solely conducted to fulfill an agency's or a department's legal mandate. Under the definition of human subject, on number 2, interventions includes both physical procedures by which data are gathered and manipulations of the subject or the subject's environment are performed for research purposes. My question is, how do you define physical procedure and define manipulations? Under number 3, the interaction includes communication or interpersonal contact between an investigator and subject. I have a question regarding classification of communication. Is it verbal? Is it data? What exactly does communication encompass? My issue with these definitions, and also with how you would possibly define field study, field research, human research, how you distinguish those. I cite for clarification a current General Dynamics grant that allows for field research with directed energy and high-powered pulse weapons. Please note that these are remote activated weapons upon the human body to develop and understand the bioeffects associated with non-lethal weapons. These include directed energy, riot control agents, broadband light, acoustic sound, and blunt impact. Under the current definition of human subject, the fact that these are applied remotely questionably skirts the definition, and no oversight is applied, potentially subjecting human subjects to what can be lethal violent force, which I remind you is unseen. So I request that you remedy the human subject definition to account for the current technologies. I ask that you include field study. In today's rapid increasing technology, it is generalizable knowledge, and it is foolish to think that there is no crossover into the public sector when military weapons are being shifted from the military to the local law enforcement and homeland security. I and others have been working to have a collective understanding of all the public comments that have been submitted. Because of the organization that I work with, we hear from victims of unethical ongoing human experimentation. I'm aware of at least 62 to 67 comments that you received on the last public comment period. Their comments have given me a greater understanding that it is critical for you to act to prioritize protections over research. I plead with you to do the right thing. Follow the lead of the Department of Energy's legal counsel, which recently stated that the Clinton memo still has legal effect. I also ask you to tighten the rules, guarantee informed consent, and please don't shrink on your responsibility. Deny the intelligence agencies waivers of informed consent. Place field studies under the same oversight as research, and demand transparency. I also have some brochures, educational brochures, if I can be allowed to give them to you all. Thank you.
Final speaker will be Norman Rabin. Oh, I'm sorry, Joan Dawson. Joan Dawson.
In December of 2012, My mother had suffered a heart attack, and we were in the rehabilitation facility. And it was me, my mother, and my sister. And my mother found this very large paperclip on the floor, and she reached down, picked it up, and she went to me and said, "Do you want this?" And I said, "Okay," and I put it in my pocket. And it was really silly, but it turned out that my mother passed on Christmas Day of just a few weeks later, Christmas of 2012. I should also say we always thought she was psychic. And the number 13 haunted her. She was buried on January 3rd, 2013. That paperclip became my mother's calling card. I found it in the oddest places. One time I slept in her bed, and I woke up, and there was a paperclip in her bed. This is a woman that worked at a plastics factory and had no real paper or paper clips in her room. I found them in front of my car door, in front of a locker that I would go to at the gym, or my niece found one in a freezer. Like, we found them in the oddest places, and every time we found them, it had to be an odd place. We'd say that was my mother's calling card. It turned out it was psychic for another reason. I worked for a federal contractor. I was a whistleblower. I experienced mobbing, which is when your coworkers turn against you, and it's psychological abuse. And I left. I thought it was over, and it came back to haunt me again. And I left my job in 2013 and recreated my life with 6 income streams. 6 months later, it fell apart. I experienced mobbing again. At one job, the man told me, "This is what you get when you mess with the police." And the next week, everywhere I looked, there was a police officer. My life has become a nightmare. A part of me wanted to say, walking up here, dead woman walking. You probably wouldn't believe what I would have to tell you about what my life is like. I do believe I am in COINTELPRO. There was recently a sign-on letter by 60 organizations, including one I served on the board for 5 years of this board as secretary and board member. Many people believe COINTELPRO is back. How this relates to this committee is that we believe it's a combination of COINTELPRO and testing with military weapons. And I'm just going to refer to my notes. Military weapons that are, there are reports on them. These are the directed energy weapons, nanotechnology, different types of tracking with chips. We've got that all in the military realm. We've got the Brain Mind Initiative by Obama, which is going to be like the Human Genome Project. So, and in regard to the weapons testing, these are weapons that are predicted to be, these are like next-gen weapons. They're going to be out there in 2020. So they are being researched, as Kate had mentioned, and you can find the research studies when you Google it. So I attest that I am definitely in COINTELPRO and could be used for experimentation. I also went through aggressive breast cancer treatment and a horrific chemo-induced menopause, so my body has had a slew of side effects. I wanted to touch upon some words that you kept on saying this morning with self-interest and shared goals. We ask that people we talk to in these positions, in paid positions, not safeguard your careers while letting our lives be sacrificed. We ask that human beings are not sacrificed for this country for the benefit of the common good. That's what the Nazis did. And they had to sell their message to professionals and to the public. And that's being done today. We also know about Milgram's experiment with obedience to authority, where over 61% administered pain to another human being if instructed by authorities. They rationalized their behavior by appealing to the greater good and for the advancement of science. We have enough in our history to teach us what's right today, and this is not right, what is happening to us. We ask that consent be given in all physical, mental, behavioral studies and not have waivers for heads of federal agencies. We ask that this be done whether the person, human being, is in a lab or in a remote situation where they're at home or on the street, because that can be done with technology. We ask that consent be given in unclassified and classified research. We ask for help. What do we need? We have the numbers. We know we have the numbers of experimentees. We have the experience, the evidence. We have whistleblowers who acknowledge and confirm our allegations. What do we need? What do we need more? We ask that there are term limits on this. We understand national security. We're all citizens. We ask that there be term limits on this or a way to opt out. Currently, there's only one way to opt out, and it's death. And these are the people I'm familiar of, not that I know, but names that I know who have died from being in this. Kelly Kassler in 2015. Gail Whitaker in 2005. Harland Gerard in 2015, targeted for 25 years. Carol Sterling in 97. Claire Wheel in 06. Darren Dowd from electronic harassment. Sean Stinn in 2012. Elvira Anderson, 2012, suicide. Ray Koski in April of 2013. Sarah Matheny in September of 2014. Alexandra Maria Foster, November 2015, 33 years old, suicide. John Lang in January of 2016. He predicted his own death. He predicted he would be killed by the Fresno cops. He died of stab wounds, house set on fire. He was a targeted individual, as many of us call ourselves. Ron Gilman, January 2016. He had Voice to Skull, which used to be called Voice of God in the Persian Gulf War. He had 2 daughters. Jessica Davis Thompson in February of 2016 died of suicide. She lived in Washington State. She called herself a targeted individual. Carol Ann Stengel Peoples in March of 2016 died at the age of 43 years old. Jacqueline Feely Roche died in November of 2015, transgender targeted individual. Benjamin Allen Murphy in November of 2015 in the United Kingdom, 57 years old. Myron May, FSU shooter, targeted individual, young man who was an attorney. Aaron Alexis, the Navy Yard shooter, was a targeted individual. He died from he was shot. He was receiving electronic harassment. Miriam Carey, the woman that made the illegal U-turn in the White House. She heard voices that sounded like Obama. That's Voice to Skull, used to be called Voice of God. They can morph. It's a technology that's available.
Mrs.
And
Dawson.
Dr. Deborah Gilmaker is the last name I have, please. And I thank you for my time. But these are people that we know were targeted and that died. The only opt-out is death. And that's why I said dead woman walking. Because suicide is that, I mean, we need to opt out. You have no idea what this does to our lives. Thank you for the time. As I said, I've waited 5 months to have this 5 minutes.
Thank you. All right. Finished with our agenda for today. Any other comments before we adjourn? All right. Thanks, everybody. Good day's work, and appreciate all the hard work from everybody, and appreciate the public comments we received. And we are to reconvene tomorrow morning at 8:30.